Rich Gorilla, to Protect Our Vote Philly, to Citizens for Better Elections, Indivisible, March on Harrisburg, Philadelphia Now, Philadelphia Agrees, Poor People's Economic Human Rights Campaign. This is what democracy looks like. What we just heard at that Board of Elections hearing is exactly what democracy does not look like. That was a textbook case of backroom deals, of insider decision making, and it really was a sign of a very broken election system and a broken democracy. So we're here to change that. And that's one of the reasons that makes our vote so really critical. If we can't even have a vote that gets counted, how are we ever going to solve the other stuff and get the representation that we need? So I want to give a very big thank you to all the grassroots organizations and advocates who've been leading the charge for elections we can trust, that are accurate, secure, and just. And that is what we are standing for and nothing less. So, this fight is alive and well in Philadelphia, in spite of who is misrepresenting us in the halls of power. And I want to thank the press that is here today for daring to give this coverage, because we need a true, free, representative media in order to have a real democracy. So we ask you to please rise to the occasion here and fill the gap, because unfortunately our media has been corporatized like our government, which makes it very difficult for us to communicate and for us to assert our democracy. So we really urge you to stand up and do the right thing, which I know is not easy to do because often your jobs are on the line and the pressure is enormous to be lapdogs to power. But that is not the media that we need. We need a free and democratic media like we need free and democratic elections. So I am here today with incredible gratitude to these grassroots groups who have been leading the charge for the democracy we deserve and who have been watchdogging the decisions that are being made in the Board of Election and in halls of power. And these decisions are very alarming and have been for quite some time, since the procurement of the next generation of voting machines has been in effect. And it's been very worrisome since the start that we are simply going down the same track, that this is deja vu all over again, and that our hard work to achieve the settlement that we all worked, gave blood, sweat, and tears for, that settlement in 2018, the so-called Stein v. Cortez agreement, the settlement agreement, it should not have been in vain. And we are here to ensure that the fruits of our labor are not just going to be passed away and thrown into the ditch. We don't just want to substitute one generation of fallible, hackable, insecure, problematic, unusable voting machines for the next, more expensive generation of hackable, unverifiable, unusable, unfriendly to the disabled voting machines. We can do all of this. And let me say right off the bat, we have the perfect solution at hand. That is simply hand-marked paper ballots and an optical scanning machine. This is the time-tested, proven, simple solution which is highly analyzed, promoted by the experts and the academics and the community members, with accommodations as needed for a variety of disabilities, but as the basic default machine, that is what we should be voting on. It's not only voter verifiable, auditable, and far less expensive. This is like the win-win, no-brainer solution. It's not rocket science. This is plain democratic decision-making. That is what is missing in action right now. And if there's any doubt about that, just view the tape of that last hearing to see what it means to have elected or appointed officials who are basically there as cardboard cutouts. They appear to be either completely ignorant of the issues or completely bought off. I don't know which it is, but neither is adequate or excusable. There should be a process for impeaching or otherwise ditching these people who are betraying the public interest in their scam of a representation. So I'm here today to basically announce what we are going to do together. And I'm really honored to be able to work with the advocates and the organizations that are represented here today to essentially take this fight back to the halls of power. We on the recount team are joining the advocates to defend our right, the right of Pennsylvanians to a voter-verified paper ballot, the right that was guaranteed by the Stein versus Cortez settlement agreement. Specifically, we have filed a letter as of last night with the Department of State calling for decertification of the ESNS ExpressVote XL and announcing that we will seek relief in the court if this unverified, unauditable, hackable, expensive machine is not properly decertified. So the process has officially begun. We are required by the settlement agreement to allow 30 days for a response. But during that time, we will essentially be preparing our case to take it back to the court in order to enforce the agreement. Because, and let me just say here, that defending our vote is more important than ever in this era of historic threats to democracy. These are threats to our civil liberties, threats to human rights, the threat of pervasive militarization, the threat to democracy of obscene and unprecedented economic disparities, where power is concentrated in the hands not of the 1%, but the 0.01%. We are at extreme disparities now, which makes democracy virtually impossible. The integrity of our elections is also in the target hairs, not just from potential foreign interference, but from domestic interference, from big money and big media, like the president of CBS, Les Moonves, who said notably during the 2016 campaign that Donald Trump may be terrible for America, but he's damn good for CBS, which is why the media gave $6 billion worth of free airtime to Donald Trump. $6 billion worth of free airtime to Donald Trump. Half as much to Hillary Clinton, half as much of that to Bernie Sanders, and a negligible amount to myself and to other independent political candidates. So interference in our elections, unfortunately, is the name of the game. It's not the exception, and it's not just a matter of foreign interference. None of that is acceptable, but we must prevent all of it and respond to all of it. These challenges make our recent progress with the settlement agreement, guaranteeing our right to vote, to a verifiable vote. It makes those guarantees all the more important in this era of widespread assault on the foundations of democracy. We must protect our vote, and we must protect the authenticity of our votes. So we are here to protect that settlement, but the ESNS ExpressVote XL violates the agreement, and let me just quickly name the specific ways that it violates that agreement, because that is what this court case is going to rest on. Instead of using paper ballots, this voting machine uses what are called summary cards, which are very difficult for voters to verify. They've been studied, they've been researched. Approximately half of voters will not even try to verify their vote. They won't even try to look at this card. And of those who do, they spend approximately 4 seconds verifying their vote with this card. So it's really a tool for ensuring that votes are not verified. It looks more like a ballot, like a receipt than a ballot, and it has barcodes at the top of it. It turns out you can verify the very unreadable text on that little card, but that's not what's counted. What's counted is the barcode. Can anybody here read a barcode with your bare eyes? No. You would be the first human being to do that. So they are essentially unreadable. Your real vote is actually unverifiable. That is why the whole state of Colorado recently banned all such voting material, all such ballot cards that use these barcodes. So it's a non-starter from there. In addition, the unverifiability opens the door to hackers, because if your vote has been changed and you can't read it and verify it, you don't know if it's accurately representing your vote. And further, this machine is very hack friendly. It is hackable, because once you have seen it, if you're able to see it, your vote card then gets reinserted. You don't touch it. It gets automatically reinserted into the machine, and it goes over the printer head, so that a manipulated machine that has malware put on it, that has malcode put on it, can change your vote. It can add into blank spaces, for example, and nobody would know the difference. Therefore, it also cannot be audited. Your vote creates no permanent record. So there is no way to actually audit the vote and find out whether there has been foul play, whether there has been malcode inserted into this machine. It provides a perfect cover-up for errors, malfeasance, tampering, and hacking. So the bottom line is that this is not by any means what we worked so hard to achieve with that agreement. The bottom line here, well, let me add one other issue, and that is the lack of transparency. Our agreement, our settlement agreement, also called for the specific inclusion of our independent academic expert to be a part of the evaluation of these machines. And in the course of the recertification, he was not allowed to participate. It was taken off-site in order to do an end run around the agreement. There's no inherent reason that privacy or security concerns could not have been safeguarded. He still could have been informed about the non-security aspects of the re-examination. So this agreement was violated in terms of the spirit of transparency, openness, and inclusion. And as the advocates know here, that's been the name of the game from the get-go. The fact that the citizen groups were not allowed to view the machines, to put hands on them, to compare the different options is completely outside of norms here across the country, not just in Pennsylvania. This should be an inclusive decision, a democratic decision, and it was not, and it has not been. So for all these reasons, we are going to see them in court. They do have the opportunity to respond. They have 30 days, and if they agree to decertify this machine, and restart the process here and include the community, you know, we're ready to go, and we won't take them to court, but otherwise we will. So there are many reforms that we need in this day and age to restore confidence in our elections. Recent polls show that about half of voters do not have confidence in our voting for the upcoming 2020 elections. Add to that, about 70% of voters not only lack confidence, but are fighting angry against the political machine that has thrown us under the bus. So if we are going to address this pressure cooker of resistance, of rebellion, which is out there in the American public, we need to have a real voting system in which we can actually express our discontent and give direction forward. So Americans are not happy campers. If we're going to fix what ails us, we need a democracy that's working for us, not just for the voting machines, for the big banks, for the fossil fuel corporations, and for the military-industrial complex. So it is working very well, thank you. So, our agreement that we worked so hard to forge has been a huge step forward for Pennsylvania, and it has raised the bar for the nation. We must not allow our progress to be rolled back by unaccountable, undemocratic, backroom decisions that are squandering taxpayer dollars on expensive, insecure, and needlessly complex voting machines. We look forward to working with the grassroots community groups to defend our right to voter verifiable paper ballots as a key step towards elections we can trust. If the state refuses to uphold our settlement agreement by decertifying this terrible voting machine, then we will be asking the court to enforce that agreement. Thank you very much. We're going to let you hear from a couple of the distinguished activists and speakers here. First, I want to call up Rich Gorella, who has been kind of the power behind the scenes here in bringing together Protect Our Vote Philly. Rich, say a few words, and then maybe we can introduce 2 or 3 other group speakers, and we'll take questions from the press.
Thank you so much, Dr. Stein. We at Protect Our Votes are very happy that Dr. Stein and the other plaintiffs in the Stein v. Cortez case are going to fight the failure of the Department of State to follow the letter of its agreement and insist that they decertify this machine. We've been working on this fight for about a year since we realized what was happening, since we realized that the city and the state have in effect been working together, and the city officials have been working together with the SNS to get this specific voting system, which is going to drain 15 million or so extra dollars out of Philadelphia's budget. But it's not paying extra for a better machine, it's paying extra for a worse machine. Whether we can stop that this November or not is in doubt. Whether we can stop it for next year, that's the goal, because in 2020, Philadelphia is going to be the bullseye in the target for election interference in the presidential elections. Now, Kevin, do you want to say a couple words? So this is Kevin Skoglund from Better Elections, Citizens for Better Elections, who has a good technical grasp. I think could say a couple things. But we'll make this real quick and go to questions with Dr. Stein.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Stein. So I just want to remind everyone how we got here. Originally, the Stein campaign asked for a recount in Pennsylvania and a couple of other states. And it was kind of embarrassing to admit that we couldn't recount those votes. because the machines were counting a machine representation of the vote only. They could kick out a piece of paper if you needed to, but they were counting the machine representation of the vote, and voters can't verify it. So as a result, they reached this settlement agreement where they said no more. We can't recount the old votes, but in the future, we're going to have voter verifiable paper ballots. We're going to have audits. We're going to have transparency around the process. And that was the settlement agreement that they reached. But these ballots on this machine are neither voter verifiable or paper ballots. They count a machine representation of the vote. They count those barcodes. On election night, the results are the tally of the barcodes. And you can't read barcodes, neither can I. And even if you did have a barcode reader, it's a bunch of meaningless numbers. There's nothing you can verify there. All you can verify is a receipt. You can verify the backup. That's the same thing that was there before with the DREs. You could verify a paper backup of the vote, but you couldn't verify the vote. And these are not paper ballots. These are called ballot cards under the election code. It clearly defines the difference between a paper ballot and a ballot card. So the Department of State knows this is not a paper ballot. So they're neither voter verifiable or a paper ballot. So I thank the Stein campaign for stepping in to defend this. They've shown that not only are they willing to handle it the first time, but they're willing to come back as much as it takes to ensure compliance. And we should all be thankful to them for that. Thank you.
I'm going to ask one of the representatives of the community with the Poor People's Economic Human Rights Campaign, Reverend Pastor Keith Collins, to just say a couple quick words for us.
Thank you, Dr. Stein. I'm a proud member of the Poor People's Economic Human Rights Campaign. I'm also here to let you know that elections have consequences. Someone said, I don't care who runs for office as long as I get to count all the votes. That was in an allegedly fascist country. We have crypto-fascism coming now to America because we can't count the votes. This is a big darn deal. Elections have consequences. They just cut off general assistance for 11,000 of the poorest people in the state of Pennsylvania. And these politicians that got elected through these type of machines were able to do it. That's why we need independent politics. We need independent politics. I'm here today to lend my support. I'm a proud Green Party member. I'm a proud member of the Poor People's Economic Human Rights Campaign, led by none other than Sherry Honkala. And I'm here to say to all of us, let's get involved. Let's wake these people up, because we're headed towards fascism in this country.
Thank you, Pastor. And I want Emily Cook, who was one of the plaintiffs in the original case, to say just a couple quick words first.
Hi, I'm Emily Cook. I'm a plaintiff in this case, Stein versus Cortez. I'm a citizen, I'm a voter, and I live in Pennsylvania. And Philadelphia is not the only county that has a problem with these machines they're getting. They're not transparent. I'm worried that they've spent the money and made shady deals with these contracts purchasing them. They shamefully refused to speak to any of us in that committee at the Board of Elections. What is wrong in Philadelphia that they can't get this right? We have experts and advocates all over the place who know more than I do that can correct this problem, and they refuse to listen to them. Why? So not this election cycle, maybe in 2020, but the next and the next. This city and this county can be completely embarrassed by not being able to verify these votes. The governor sent a directive, paper ballot, paper ballot. This is a violation, and I hope the settlement reopens this. Thank you.
So we'll go to questions. We'll start with members of the press.
I'm running for president in 2020.
Actually, I'm working on the vote in 2020 so that our votes can actually mean something. I'm also working on ranked choice voting because we need to not only count the votes and know that they're accurate, but we need to have real choices, and we need to end the blaming and shaming of voters for voting our values, for rejecting a system that has thrown most Americans under the bus. We need to be able to vote for the deep change which Americans are hungering for. Remember, the largest voting bloc in 2016 was those who did not vote. 100 million voters who chose to vote with their feet by rejecting the two major party candidates being shoved down their throats. There were 62 and 63 million voters respectively for Trump and Clinton, but 100 million voters who chose not to vote for either two of the available options. We need to liberate voters, not only to know that their votes are being counted, but to be able to guide our democracy forward. We need a vision forward. We need to do more than go to the polls and vote against what we fear. We need to be able to vote for what we want. Democracy needs an affirmative vision. So that's what I'll be doing this time. Other questions? Yes.
The Department of State that certifies these machines, have you been able to speak to anyone from the department or from Governor Wolf's administration to get their position on how you feel about these machines?
So we have written them one letter already, and their response was not exactly meaningful. It was a little bit off topic, I must say. It really didn't answer the specific complaints, which is what I essentially enumerated, those 4 violations actually of the agreement. It really didn't address them. So we sent this letter. We sent them another more specific letter last night that again articulates what is the problem. They need to decertify this machine or we will seek relief in the court. So now we're very clear what our intentions are, so we'll see if we get a better response from them. I'm not holding my breath. Yeah, and just to remind you, there's a 30-day clock on this, which has begun ticking. So they have 30 days to respond before we take this to the court. And we'll keep you posted. I mean, we're hoping that they will see the writing on the wall that people are not going to just go to sleep about this. We don't want to see a reenactment of the chaos of 2016 again in 2020. And we know that these machines are inaccurate. They don't even read their own cards accurately. And an inaccuracy of 2 or 3% is enough to throw the entire vote into a legal contest. So there may be, all chaos that breaks loose if the election goes through. And that's just on the issues of reading the vote and interpreting it, let alone the other issues about the security of the vote, the hackability, and interference in the vote. So for all those reasons, we really need to fix it now and not wait until just before the election or afterwards. We're asking for big trouble. In this current polarized environment, this would be a horrible contention to have after the vote. Yes. Yes. Yeah, sure. So we know that the brand of machine is called the ES&S system. Unfortunately, there are about 3 corporations nationwide that produce all these machines. It's a very powerful business. And there is a voting machine industrial complex. And we know from prior reports, I think first there was an Inspector General report here, if I'm correct, in Pennsylvania, that noted influence peddling by the industry, trips and junkets and giveaways and so on to the people who make the decisions. Not all of them, but some of the members of various boards of elections. And we know that the Philly Board of Elections has 2 people who I understand just had to recuse themselves because of their financial conflicts of interest after they had already made the decision. So this decision really stinks, and as I understand, at least one of them is now working for ES&S. So this is like a poster child. This is a textbook example of backroom corrupt decision-making and influence peddling that is degrading all aspects of our democracy. But when it happens in our voting system, then it really makes it impossible for us to make good decisions everywhere else. Okay, it's very simple. This is not rocket science. It's widely known among the advocates and the experts. It's essentially a paper ballot and an optical scanner. That's all. That is the most reliable, the most secure, and it costs half as much. So you can have many more of these machines. I understand in some areas, in some precincts, there were lines. Well, those lines are created. Those are manufactured lines when the polling places are underserved and when they are undersupplied. Then you will get a line. That is a very fixable line. That is not a rocket science problem. That is a problem of democracy and adequate representation. This can be fixed. Okay, maybe last question. Yes. So this is a state ruling, so it applies to the whole state. And furthermore, I'd say it's a state ruling which is noted across the country. So this has been really, this was sort of at the forefront of a major trend. It was previously 1 out of every 6 voters, maybe 6 to 12 months ago. It was 1 out of every 6 voters in the U.S. that was going to be voting on a paperless, electronic, hackable, unverifiable voting machine. But those numbers have gone way down, and Philadelphia and the work of this group was really at the leading edge of this movement. It's gone from 1 out of 6 to I think 1 out of 12 right now. So the numbers have gone way down, but there's still a problem. So it's really important that we not allow our progress to be rolled back. We're doing this not only for Philadelphia, not only for Pennsylvania, but really for voters all over the country. Thank you all very much. Keep up your work, and we'll see you shortly.
I would like to thank the members of the press for showing up here and say that Dr. Stein will be available really right now for any sidebar follow-ups that you might want for a few minutes. Thank you so much for showing up, and especially I want to thank all of you folks here, all of the advocates, all of the groups that have worked with us. You know, we are the people on the front lines of keeping our votes safe. We need to get out there and we need to fight for votes on our different issues. But somebody needs to keep those votes safe and make sure it counted. And that's us. That's all of us here right now. So I truly, truly thank you. And Protect Our Vote Philly Coalition thanks you. And we thank all the groups and people who are here today.